certain that everything is certainly fine. Morning in Ponyville shimmers, morning in Ponyville shines, and I know for absolute certain that everything will be fine.
Hello again, one and all. I am TorridPasta999, your online horror host whom you go to discover what gets to live and what gets sent straight to hell. And Twitch, shapeshifting bug vampire thing extraordinaire. Hey, no unauthorized cameos, bug boy. I need something to do after you managed to get me banned from streaming. We've been over this. That was your own fault for being a hoe on company time. Company time? You don't have a company. You make these videos in your garage. And you've been freeloading this entire time. Hey, I had a job, remember? A boob doing a boob job is not a real job. Oh, screw you! You couldn't even if you wanted to, virgin bug. Ghost stories. A seemingly generic name. More of a concept, really. A tradition as old as time itself. Stories of the supernatural, of terrifying hauntings, of ghosts, ghouls, monsters, and demons. Stories we tell that scare and excite us, that make us quiver and look over our shoulders into the deep darkness, petrified of the possibility of what unknown terrors lurk within, told around campfires in the dark of bedrooms in the dead of night. And of course, all across the internet. There have been many franchises to bear the title of Ghost Stories, but tonight we look at one, a series that, though the title itself offers no distinction between itself and countless others, everyone well knows just which one is meant. In the year 2000, an anime was released based on Japanese children's novels which were themselves based upon popular urban ghost stories from Japan. The series follows young Satsuki, her brother Ketsuro, their three friends, and a demon called Amanojaku as they work together to ward away supernatural hauntings that threaten them and their local town, following the directions of Satsuki's late mother, who had previously defeated the spooks and spirits. But we're here to talk about the show's most notorious aspect, the English dub. When the show was brought to the United States, it was handed over to ADV Films in 2005 to produce an English dub. Allegedly, they were given very few constraints, only adhering to not changing any names at all, maintaining how each ghost is slain, and not to change the core meaning of each episode. So, when writing the show, they allowed for a metric shit ton of ad-libbing, basically allowing the voice actors to more or less come in and do whatever they wanted. And this resulted in one of the most hilarious anime dubs of all time.
You wanna be an Air Force Ranger! You wanna live a life of danger! You don't wanna get raped by strangers!
Because his pajamas are gay.
I want a huge allowance and breasts when I get older.
And when I get older, I want to fondle said breasts.
His funny little requests.
Touch me.
His reprimands.
Touch me harder.
The only royalty is Jesus and Black Rap is satanic.
Why do I have to sit next to her?
Remember, we drew straws and you lost.
Oh my god, what the hell's happening here? These are the fastest lip slaps I've ever had to sing!
Drop the Krispy Kreme, Serpico! We need your help
You did
here!
my house look like my father and my brother after 9 masters.
Yeah, boogity-diggity-diggity-diggity-diggity-diggity-diggity!
Once a plucky group of fairly standard anime protagonists, the cast were reimagined into a bunch of highly dysfunctional assholes. The male lead and love interest, Hajime, was remade into a sarcastic pervert that leaned more into being an anime protagonist stereotype. His best friend Leo went from the group's resident paranormal expert into a Jewish nerd and the butt of everyone else's dickery. Momoko, once a psychic medium, now a born-again fundamentalist Christian, and the little brother Kechiro, became completely retarded.
Thanks a lot, man.
Huh?
Well, selectively retarded, I guess. For the sake of comedy. Really, the only one who kind of stayed normal was Satsuki, but only in that she wasn't quite as wildly exaggerated as everyone else, though she still had her dickishness amped up to 11, and was easily frustrated with everyone. Amano Jaku also stayed basically the same, just with fourth wall breaks. Not just the main characters, but supporting cast members and even a lot of the ghosts also got this treatment. Most infamously, the rabbit. You know the one.
Not because you're a rabbit, but because you're black.
The adults and children of the show's world were likewise reimagined through the English dub to be just as dysfunctional and generally unhelpful, while the ghosts were often more directly portrayed as self-interested, snarky assholes. And, of course, the kind of jokes the dub indulged in were of a wide variety that are still not considered very acceptable today. Race jokes,
Think of a big black man chasing you!
sex jokes,
I'll suck you out for a Scooby snack.
political jokes,
You just wait. When that wonderful president finishes stacking the Supreme Court, we won't have to.
stabs at religion,
If you want something to happen, you just need to pray. And not be a Muslim. Or Jewish.
classism,
Now I know why poor people bitch all the time!
and all sorts of things, as well as pop culture references,
It's the chick from The Ring! I mean, The Grudge. What movie are we ripping off again?
Grudge!
and even fourth wall breaks.
Okay, stop trying to look up my skirt. It's a cartoon! David Williams.
Granted, those latter two kinds of jokes are far more widely accepted today than they arguably should be, depending on who you ask. The general idea was to offend basically everyone equally and just have fun with the wild dialogue. Needless to say, the dub was extremely successful, garnering wide praise for its hilarity and naturally developing a cult following. And years later, others would spiritually follow in the footsteps of ADB by making their own hilarious redubs of animes, most notably Dragon Ball Z, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Sword Art Online. Though these fan dubs are not official, they do capture the exact spirit of the official English Ghost Stories dub. But, all that said though, that's not to say that this show is without controversy. Ironically, it's not for its humor. Well, not necessarily. You see, as Stephen Foster allegedly said, he claimed that the original anime was actually terrible, very poorly received in Japan, apparently being very poorly written and animated, and thus why Fuji TV allegedly gave Foster and ADV free rein to do almost whatever they wanted with the series. This, as it turns out, isn't actually true. Not really. Getting the animation out of the way, it's actually pretty standard, and arguably even decently high quality for its time, I'd say. I'll even go as far to say that the scary bits are very sufficiently scary, where the low frame rate and bizarre actions of ghosts actually lend to a discomforting fear factor. However, the low frame rate and odd choice of facial expressions and poses, which admittedly are very standard for anime, even today, was very much in contrast with the more fluid Western animation, where bizarre poses and facial expressions are seemingly more deliberate, and comedy is, ideally, more reserved for where it is actually appropriate. In short, it was easy for the dub to poke fun at the animation and allude to it being bad, as most Western audiences wouldn't really know that Japan had different standards. And while not by any stretch an anime weeb myself, I imagine there were quite a few out there who just bristle at the idea of a decently animated Japanese show being considered badly animated, just because it doesn't meet the same standard as here in the West. Foster's claims that the show was badly written and poorly received in Japan have also been found to be false, as it was actually apparently successful, or at the very least, getting average to decent viewing numbers. Makes sense, the show looks fine by anime standards, and its whole gimmick is cultural ghost stories. I can see that. Even more troubling, they did not as much tell him that he could do whatever he wanted, but rather it seemed more likely that he had taken advantage of lax business standards, likely set so low as rights holders would naturally assume the distribution studios would follow in adapting the shows properly. But instead, Foster used the limited guidelines to do as he pleased, lying to the public, and apparently not having a high view of the show, or perhaps even anime in general. Well, at least that's my understanding of what happened. But the details aside, the new overall story is that he effectively told a fib, all the while messing with someone else's property. This issue would not go unnoticed, though people decrying the dub were drowned out by the people who loved it. However, the long-standing consequences would bring this controversy to light, so the new story goes, as what ADV did somewhat created a precedent for other companies to fix other animes. One, in particular, having its dialogue completely rewritten into trite, quickly dated, social justice-sounding gobbledygook. And the only reason we even have any confirmation that this was done with malicious intent was because some idiot YouTuber bragged about doing it on his Patreon or Subscribestar or whatever it was. Said YouTuber got his ass fired for that, if I'm not mistaken, but no one believes that this has actually fixed the problem. And of course, it is a problem many now associate with Stephen Foster. There's more I could get into, like the reputation of 4Kids and the West's history of localizing anime to better fit Western sensibilities, and of course there's the whole subs versus dubs debate you used to hear about all the time on the internet. And the panty shots of the 11-year-old. I don't see how that's actually relevant. I'm just saying. The OG version of the show is no saint either. Right. Takes one to know one, huh? I don't like what you're inferring. Good. However, I want to keep the focus on the show, as I think there's another layer to this matter that has gotten lost in the outrage and controversy. There are actually two topics I would like to cover, the second being my own interpretation of the finalized show. But the first? Well, I want to talk about what really happened. You see, this is not actually the first English dub of the series. Wait, seriously? As it turns out, there was another dub prior to the famous one from 2006 that actually followed the original Japanese script very closely. So, what happened? It sucked. Wait, so you're telling me that? Yes, exactly. When they said that the original dub sucked, they were likely actually referring to the original English dub, because that dub was your very typical bad English voice dub, and it turns out it was actually some middleman distributor who sent it over to Foster, them knowing very well the kind of work he was known for.
What I think is far more likely is this. A company called Animax actually did their own English dub way before this one. It was completely normal. You know what? These dubs are actually quite similar. It's likely that this English dub did perform shittily, so they began talks with ADV. It was common at the time to throw in an anime for free during bulk deals. It makes sense that Ghost Stories, which ADV wasn't charged a licensing fee for, was that free anime. So the middleman in all this is thinking of what to do with this damn show, and he realizes there's only one man who can do the dub, Stephen Foster. To their knowledge, there's already been an English dub, the show performed poorly, and there are extremely loose guidelines for localizing. It makes perfect sense that ADV would be like, Steven, we need you to do what you do best. F this up for us. And it turned out amazing, and the rest is history.
That actually makes way too much sense. But the reason no one knows about the original dub? Duh, because it sucked, didn't stand out, and was completely overshadowed. Well, at least that's one claim I've heard. However, Foster himself says that the claims of the OG show being popular in Japan don't hold up to snuff, citing in particular that the OG show only had one season, and asks why would it only get one season if it was allegedly so popular? Why would they not franchise it into the ground? And, you know what? I can absolutely see his logic. This is Japan we're talking about, not Britain. Perhaps it's not unusual for single-season runs in Japan, no matter how successful, and Foster just wasn't aware of that. But either way, when he says it wasn't popular, that's what he meant. From his own reading of the situation, the OG show didn't do very well, Plus, it was basically his job to not only localize the dialogue, but also make it more palatable to Western audiences, and there were multiple parties he had to answer to, and they more than likely encouraged him to keep going. Okay, but what about the original English dub? Oh, that does exist. I've seen it.
Yeah, well, you've tripped over that step every single day since you first started at this school. So if you ask me, there's something not quite right about you. In my opinion, she's probably got a neuromotor dysfunction there. Just like most people get. What are you trying to say?
It's crap. At the very least, I can absolutely see Western distributors shuffling it off to a quote-unquote better localizer to try and boost its numbers. But either way, when it comes to claims people make about certain figures within media production hijacking a show or movie or whatever, I've come to find those claims to be a bit exaggerated. So, when it comes to the claims that Stephen Foster effectively hijacked a popular anime for greed and stupid jokes, no, I do not believe that. Feel free to scrutinize his claims if you want, but I find the more messy and complex stories hold the most water. This is getting too confusing. I think I might have a way to straighten this out. So let's say that you do not believe this explanation. Let's say that you're some fanatical anime purist with an axe to grind, looking for a good old-fashioned black and white villain to go after. Fucking weebs. Let's say that this second story, that he tampered because he was an egotistical doofus, is all true, and that absolutely bled into the Dragon Lady anime being dubbed with cringy social politics by a retarded YouTuber. Let's say that that's all true. You see, for all its source material scrambling and dated edgy 2000s humor, I still find the English dub to actually be superior to the original. Now, while I am a very edgy bat pony, and I do love my crass humor mixed in with my nightmarish spooks, and I also don't mind the dated references, I also love a good ghost story that comes together in the end, and for all its edgy humor, I believe the Ghost Stories dub gives us just that. You see, in the original series, much of the hauntings were effectively set into motion by sacred spiritual grounds being disturbed by urbanization.
We bound an evil spirit and placed it back in the big camphor tree. Hallelujah.
Leo, didn't they chop down the big camphor tree on the mountain the other day?
Not only was the camphor tree chopped down, the whole mountainside is being turned into residential developments.
If you destroy the object a ghost in spiritual sleep is occupying, that ghost will begin haunting again.
Like a soul who doesn't know Jesus floating without purpose. Your mother was so full of Jesus, she saved those souls from hell by banishing them into the forest. But if the mountain's under development, then that means
The ghosts, all the banished ones are going to come back.
And I believe this actually fits in very well with how the adults are portrayed in the English version. Rude, dysfunctional, and helpful screw-ups, etc. Seeing as how the protagonist's own shortcomings are direct results of their own parents' shortcomings. Starting with Leo. One episode reveals, and albeit jokes about, his mother being a comically severe alcoholic, to the point where Leo is impressed that the bottles he comes home to find are fewer than usual. Moving on to Hajime, not much is made of his home life, so he requires the most theorizing. But his casual, jerkwad nature and hints of nihilism give me the very strong impression that his parents just don't pay him much attention, or perhaps just gave up on him some time ago.
You can have an abortion if you want. My mother says she wished she would have had one. I'm too young to die. The only person I've had sex with is my babysitter.
He's clearly disillusioned with the world and is just looking for the spoils of said world to get him by. Perhaps one could say that the casual douchebag persona is just a mask to bury his depression. And then we have Momoko. While presently an obnoxious born-again Christian, she was revealed to have the exact opposite kind of person before finding Jesus in rehab and changing her ways. I believe it also states that she comes from a rich family, and it's more than likely that her folks paid her little mind, but left her to do whatever she wanted, at least until she crashed out. At the very least, they have a dysfunctional relationship, and Momoko likely acted out because of this. And that leaves us with Satsuki and Kechiro. If one pays attention, then one will likely notice the unfortunate development of their father, as while at the start of the series he seems rude but otherwise fine, but by the end of the series he's joined Leo's mother in being an alcoholic. Simply put, the previous generation has failed today's youth, not just by bringing them up in such ways that leave them so dysfunctional and broken, but by also leaving said children in a world which they have broken, by disrespecting the past and natural world, and not thinking of the consequences of their actions. And now it's up to the kids to fix the broken world their folks had left for them. And yet, for so much depressing context beneath the edgy humor, there is a more hopeful side to this. Not only did Satsuki's late mother leave them a means to undo a lot of the damage, but despite everything, they do manage to come together. Despite their faults and how much they can get on each other's nerves, they still become friends. They still gradually start to work through their own issues, I think, and ultimately succeed in setting right the wrongs of the evil spirits. One could even see the reluctant bond between them and the Monojaku as further cementing the undercurrent theme of reconnecting man with the spirits of old. At the very least, achieving a true balance and respect between the two. Sure, he is only there because he became trapped in Kechiro's cat, Kaya, but his willing self-sacrifice and return as a tree in the final episode goes to show that there really was something between all of them. The English dub, I believe, is actually better than the original Japanese dialogue, because it adds more layers while still ultimately staying true to the original core aspect of the series. What's more, I further believe that a truer version of the anime to the original script would never have been as popular, remembered, or beloved as this one. The original didn't have a ton of dumb jokes, yes, but there was really nothing more about it to make it stand out here in the States. More than likely, it would have just become another obscure anime that most people would have forgotten about. Likely, as it was probably overshadowed in Japan by the rise of Dragon Ball and other such anime, it too in the States likely would have also been overshadowed. But because what happened happened, for better or for worse, it is remembered, it is beloved, and even the original version is now more well known because of its infamous English dub. Did the dub disrespect the original version? In many ways the argument could be made. Were there negative widespread consequences of the kind of tampering done to the show? Quite possibly. And yet, for as much as many may want to go back and undo it all, the truth is that we just can't. Much like in the show, the past is the past. What happened, happened, and the damage is done. Personally, I believe that looking back and trying to repair the damage of old just isn't a sustainable way forward. We can look back and curse the names of our forebears all we like, but by the end of the day, the only way truly forward is forward. To look to the future, and to look to each other, and to learn from the past. But not obsess over how good or bad it was, and repair only what's needed in order to continue onward. We might all be a dysfunctional bunch of disillusioned, narcissistic, temperamental, fanatical, wimpy-ass, perverted, gooning retards. But that doesn't mean we're hopeless, and that we can't make a difference. The English dub of Ghost Stories is a story about the group of kids coming together and, through each other, finding their own way forward. By battling ghosts and demons. Hit on the show if you like, but I think I'll keep watching and keep laughing for many more Nightmare Nights to come. And so we come to the end, my viewers, and the end of 10 years of Nightmare Night spooks and scares. So, this is really the end, is it? For the foreseeable future, yes. Huh. And I was just starting to hate you less. How touching. Twitch, I just want you to know, I do not hate you because you are a changeling. I hate you because you're black. Don't screw you! And to all of you, one final time, this is TorridPasta999, signing out and reminding you, we've only got each other, so we might as well make the best of it. Happy Nightmare Night!
Muffins!
Happy Nightmare Night, everybody. Now go have some spooky fun of your own.